Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Built Environment Marketing Show, which is hosted by me, Io Abbas. I am a marketing consultant and I have my own firm called Abbas Marketing, which you can find at www.abbasmarketing.com. I deliver marketing consultancy, content creation, speaking and training services for architects and engineers. And it's something I've done for 23 years and 4.5 years with my own practice. So this episode is a really, really timely one. I read a stat last week that 17 construction companies are now going insolvent every working day. So the need for marketing and I guess getting out there and getting your firm out there and setting up your business correctly is really, really important. And we can't get away from the fact that last week ISG sadly went into administration. So there's going to be a lot of people questioning, a lot of people who I do feel really sorry for questioning, I guess, what to do next. You know, do I find another job? Do I take some time out? Do I start my own thing? So I know for me, I started this business, Abbas Marketing, in 2019 after I was made redundant, and I couldn't find a job that I really wanted to do next. So that was my catalyst for setting up my own. And I know when there's a lot of disruption in the industry, that's when we start to see spin-off practices, which is what I want to talk about today. So my conversation today is going to be about how I would approach, I guess, marketing to answer the question, how to win your first projects as a new built environment company. So it can be so hard to figure out where to invest your time and your money, or both. So what I want to do is focus effort on some of the kind of tactical things that you can do now as you're getting started that are low cost. And actually, a lot of these things are also still applicable to firms who are already in business. And it's just like, if they want to kind of have a good run up to the end of the year, some of this stuff will work for you as well. So don't think it's not applicable. So throughout the episode, I'll also signpost if there's other podcast episodes I've done that might be useful to listen back to give you more in-depth on the kind of things that I've discussed. So first up, before you get out and do, it's like defining what you do. To niche or not to niche? I really do think it's a way of making it easier for people to understand what it is that you do. So starting out, it's better to have something that you want to be known for by you selecting some kind of niche. You can branch out later. That's absolutely fine. This isn't set in stone. But it's like, first of all, what's your focus? It could be on residential projects. It could be infrastructure. It could be commercial fit out in London. It could be sustainable design. It could be only working for one particular type of sector or industry, or I only work with public sector clients based in Newcastle or whatever. So just finding that kind of area, which is your niche. And then you will go on and then you can define your value proposition. So what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you stand out from the competition? Why should those clients choose you over others out there? And by having a targeted niche, it makes it a lot easier to do that. It makes it a lot easier for you to be clear about who you are and what you do. And that brings me on to the kind of next area, which is your message, your targeting, and your positioning. So understanding those messages that you want to convey to others and you having a predetermined target audience that you want to go for makes that so much easier and means that you can give people a lot more clarity. So I know for me, my messaging is always around my 3 content pillars, which are about me, they're about marketing, and they're about the built environment. That's what I talk about in all my messaging and all the content that I put out. That is it. And then in terms of targeting, I target kind of built environment firms, but probably mainly architects and engineers of a certain size. And positioning, I don't know, I guess I don't position myself towards the lower end. I'm not the cheapest, but I'm quite happy to say that. And it's just understanding where I am in relative, I guess, in terms of the competition. I'm not a full service agency. I can't do all the stuff that some of the larger agencies do, and I don't want to do that. So it's understanding your position in the market and where you operate. I actually did a podcast episode about messaging, targeting and positioning in April, which I'll put in the show notes as well. It's a really, really useful deep dive into how to do your messaging, your targeting and your positioning. And there's some really handy diagrams as well that I use when I'm out with clients. So I'll put that in the show notes as well. So defining your niche, understanding your messaging, targeting and positioning. Then I think it's a thing about just building your minimum viable product. I was working in education technology in 2019, actually. And one of the things you have an MVP. It's very, very common. And it just means that you don't invest too heavily. You don't get too wedded down on stuff. You basically, what's the minimum I can do to take something out to market? So it doesn't have to be a full-on website. It could just be knowing I'm targeting this type of client. These are my messaging, targeting, and positioning. And then just writing a simple 2-pager about who I am, what I do, and my expertise. That is it. And then you could sit there and you could actually just go out and start to socialize that with people, email it to people that you know, and start those conversations. So I think that's the thing, is that sometimes when I look at social media, I see people and all they're saying is, you must have a new website, you must have a brand before you can start a business. It's like, generally you'll find those people are actually just selling those types of services, and that's all they want you to do. So you need a brand, you must have a logo, you must have this, you must have that. And actually it's like, nah. I mean, you don't need all of that. I mean, initially I just basically I built my own website, my first website. I had brand colors, which I like the color purple. And I kind of just built it myself and I just started off. Now that was cheap, and because it was my own time and I just learned how to use Squarespace. But I didn't have a logo. I didn't have proper branding, any of that stuff until the end of year one. And I'm really glad I didn't, because having a minimal viable product. So I knew what I was doing, but I was taking it out to people. And then I was realizing, actually, people are paying me for something completely different. I thought I would be building this, but actually what they're coming to me for is this. And I think then at least I'm not too wedded to what I've done. So it meant that I could turn around and go, actually, scrap this. This is what I need to do. It's no huge cost lost. It's just a case of, I got my minimum viable product out there. I socialized it with people who might be interested. I learned and I listened to what they were actually willing to pay for. And then I start to build my actual brand assets and all of that kind of branding stuff that costs money. So I think just trying to realize how you can still be lean and you can still get into business and have those conversations, but what's the minimum stuff you can have in place in order to do that? So important. And I think if I am looking to get my first project, the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit has to be your immediate network. Those people who know you, like you, and trust you already. So they could have worked with you previously. They could have been part of project teams. They could be your mum, your family, your friends, people you know who do need your service and trust you. Those are the people who you can really kind of reach out to, have virtual coffees, have in-person coffees, industry peers. Personal recommendations and outreach are huge. And that's the quickest way to bring opportunities in fast. So actually, saying, hi, I've just set up my business. This is what I'm doing. Quick one-pager attached. If you know anyone who might be of interest in this type of service, please do introduce me. I'd love a helping hand. And I think don't feel afraid to do that. But just don't wait for people to come to you. You be proactive. You go out there. You send the emails. You get out there and get in front of people. So leverage your immediate network and do that once you've got your MVP ready to go. Hi, it's Io here, and I just wanted to interrupt the show quickly to say a bit more about what I do. I'm a digitally led marketing consultant, and I specialise in working with built environment firms just like yours. I think there's so much more that AEC firms can do to make the most of the digital marketing opportunity. And if it's something that you would like to explore working with me, how to make the best of online and in-person worlds, then do get in touch. Email me at io, which is AYO, at abbasmarketing.com, and let's have a chat. And moving on, I guess the other thing is like strategic partnerships or subcontracting. So I think the thing is, you don't always get jobs directly from an end client. There are your wider network and those wider communities that you can tap into. So it could be that, you're a specialist in designing bathrooms and you know that, you can do that that part so well, way, 100 times better than anyone else. So it might be a case of actually, you might go to a larger practice and say, I can deliver this service for you in such a brilliant way, but, and this is what I can do that's different. And you might get some work that way. So it's looking at different ways that you can actually win work. So it's not always down to you. So, bigger established firms, something you could explore, or as well as, if you're a copywriter, for example, and you actually partner with people who build websites, because actually they always need copywriters. So looking around that kind of complementary skills, people have complementary skills, or, if you're an engineer, it might be that you join forces with other architects or a project manager, and that is what you do. So you're there and you're using your skills and your network to find work in different ways. So it doesn't always have to directly come in via you. It could be via your network. So also looking at that. So I would say start to kind of map out who the different types of groups that and that you're part of, and those communities, and start to build up that picture and that map of who to target. That's really, really useful. Next, I guess, when I'm thinking about it, networking, events and conferences, huge way to kind of raise visibility, hear about what's going on in the industry, meet people face to face or online. I mean, I love in-person stuff, but it can be quite draining. If I am going to an in-person event, I will put a post on LinkedIn saying, hit me up if you're going to be there. If it's larger events and they've got directories of who's attending, I will go in and I'll message people and use the apps. So it's using all of the kind of, I guess, ways to meet people when you're there. What can you set up before you're there? What can you do to publicize that you're going to be there? And then kind of having a plan of what you're going to listen to, who you're going to meet, when you're going to take breaks. That's always really important to factor in. And just kind of doing that. And I would say what you want to do is, when you're researching industry for events, conferences and webinars, think about the audiences that are going to be there. Are you just going to events with your peers, or you're going to events where your actual target clients are going to be there? Because actually where you want to be is those areas where your target clients are likely to be there in big numbers. So sometimes it's not an industry event. It could be a different type of event, but you being there, and you could be the only, say, architect or the only engineer or the only marketer there. And that could be a really good, strong position for you to network from. So I think it's just doing lots of research as to what's out there, what you can get out of it. And to be honest, there are quite a few kind of low-cost networks, like, New London Architecture. You've got things like regular events, the FSB. You've got things like Enterprise Nation. You've got Profile Network if you're a marketeer. There's quite a few kind of groups that you can join that run events that you can kind of attend and go to in person, but also don't discount online events as well, because that could be another way of meeting people. Yeah, and I think use social media, like I said, to make sure that you are publicising that you're going and all of that kind of stuff. And when you get back, use the apps like LinkedIn app to connect with people at the event, and then follow up. Hi, really lovely to meet you. Love talking to you about this. Just want to keep in touch. And I always find that when I do go to an event and I've met people, I always make sure I connect on LinkedIn. Why? Because that means at least they're going to start seeing my content regularly, and I post most days. So that's really, really good, and a way to keep up to date with what I'm up to and what's going on. And also, it's also quite nice to drop them a note once you are back saying, lovely to meet you and to talk about this, because also that's a nice aid or memoir if you start talking to them at a later date. So yeah, that's a really useful thing to do as well. I know when it's architects and engineers, quite often when you've worked for a larger firm or a different practice, when you're starting out on your own, it can be quite hard, because you're like, how do I reference? I can't talk about the projects I did at my previous employer. I kind of liken this, I think, an analogy I use, which I rather liked, is like, it's like going on a date and then talking about your previous partner. I think that's actually quite a good analogy. So it's kind of like, how do I showcase my skills and my work and my efforts? So I guess there's two schools that you can do in this. One might be, you might have permission that, you can actually showcase projects from your previous employer, but you need to have that conversation with them. But also you have to be quite specific about the role and the aspects that you played in that project. So rather than, this is a £220 million scheme that does this, that and the other, it'll be, I led the design elements of this section of this project, which was a £2 million scheme. So I think it's just making sure that you're very clear about previous employer and your role in the actual project. So it's very, very clear about what you did, rather than hanging off their coattails. And the other way, I guess, you can do is, actually coming up with like concept projects or the types of, designing, concept schemes of like the types of projects that you would like to be delivering in future. And then you could use that to kind of showcase your work, showcase your ideas, showcase your thought process, and do it in that way. And that could be a nice way of just showing this is the type of stuff I want to do. And again, if you tied that into the target audiences that you want to reach and the types of things that you want to do, it just kind of makes it gives you stuff to talk about. And I think that's what you really want, is you want things to talk about. You want issues to talk about. So that's the type of stuff that you can use in that kind of one page or the introductory document that you put together that kind of says, hi, this is who I am and what I do, types of stuff I'm really interested in, why, and look, here's some showcases of what I can do. So I think there's ways around it. You have to just be a bit more lateral thinking's required. Anyway, so all of those are quite minimal, quick, easy, fast ways, low cost that you can kind of get out there, get your name out there, get those first projects, get those first connections together. But I was just thinking, like, if you're going to have a bit more budget, what else could you invest in? So I guess, if you're an architect, I guess it's going to be visuals, right? High quality visuals, CGIs, that kind of stuff. It can't be that easy to always do if you haven't got projects. So, sometimes conceptual work or past freelance projects can also be shown. But if you've got budget to kind of, create some lovely CGIs about your ideas, then yes, that could be a great way if you've got some budget to do that. I know when I interviewed Magnus Strom early on in the podcast series, he did talk about how he invested when he was starting out in amazing CGIs of projects. I mean, it was what he could afford, and it helped him to secure a lot of press coverage at that time. And that was really kind of carried his practice through until they actually had completed projects to then shoot and then show. So it's kind of thinking laterally about what can I invest in now that will help stand me in good stead for the future. And obviously his stuff was high-end design, high-end residential design. So actually having those CGIs really, really helped him. And the quality of the CGIs, you can't even always tell they're not real. So that's amazing. And I guess the other thing is your website and SEO. I mean, for me, SEO, search engine optimization, I've got an episode on that, which was one of my podcasts, Practical Snacks, recently. I'll put a link into the show notes to that as well. But your website, you can do a kind of one-page website that's who we are, what we do, and very, very simple. And you can get that up relatively quickly and cost-effectively. And then you can start on the whole thing about SEO. SEO takes a while to build, though. So I think you can have a simple site, simple SEO, get that going, and then start to build out once you start to win jobs. That's definitely an area you can use. But you can kind of use your SEO to say London-based architectural projects and kind of just start to kind of build that domain authority with Google so you start to rank. So yeah, that's definitely something you can look at. It's just you could literally have a simple one-page website and then build in some initial SEO so you've got that going. I think another thing, if you're looking for immediate jobs, could be ads. But I mean, I'm saying ads, but I always worry a bit about ads because I think it's very, very easy to lose money on Google pay-per-click if you don't know what you're doing. I'm not an ad expert and I always go to them because I'm like, I know it's very easy to kind of get lost. So I would say if you've got a bit more budget, potentially find somebody you can work with, but you will need more of a budget, like at least £1,000 or whatever a month to kind of do Google ads properly. But that could be a way to find people who are looking for something now. Look, they've got jobs now. I need an architect now in London kind of thing. So that could be a good way to get those leads in quickly. And I think another one that I did for a new recruitment agency was a couple of years ago. We had she was launching her new agency. She had a specific niche, which was all about kind of, I guess, diverse recruitment, recruiting more women into senior architectural practices and people from different backgrounds into senior roles in architectural firms. And that's quite a niche. And she was very, very particular about how she did that. And what was really nice is that we actually ran a launch event where we had a small round table with a number of HR leaders. And we spoke about some of the issues about architectural recruitment. And then from that, we created a white paper, which kind of was like a helpful guide for different architectural firms. And then that guide was then used as a way in to talk to talent managers in-house at large architectural practices and say, I've got this piece of research which I think you'll find really useful. And that helped her to open the door as a small practice and get on big tender lists. So it's just thinking laterally around how you can launch your firm, how you can get in front of the right people, what can you add to the debate that will open doors for you. It's a slightly longer term thing, but actually it was highly effective that it fast-tracked her business onto the tender list for a number of main architectural firms. So it's a great way of doing that. Anyway, in conclusion, if I was starting my business now, what would I do? I hope this has given you some ideas. There doesn't have to be a huge amount of investment, and anyone who says that they do are generally going to be profiting from you. But I think there's a lot you can do initially to kind of set the foundations. And that is a lot of it is thinking, what's my messaging? Who am I targeting? What's my niche? And really spending time really fleshing all of that out. And that will stand you in good stead. And then you can get a few basics together and go out there and just start having conversations with people, which will then help you refine your message, refine what you do, refine your materials, and win those first projects. Anyway, I hope you found that really, really useful. Our next Built Environment Marketing show will be an interview. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you as well. Hope you have a good day. Take care. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes, which will have useful links and resources connected to this episode. You can find that on abbasmarketing.com. And of course, if you like the show, please do share it with others on social, as it helps more people to find us. See you soon.